Now there's a big morning dip. So they head to Starbucks and they get a big coffee. You build it over time. Build what's known as non-negotiables. Go 6 months, don't talk to anyone, just work. Build your business, build your thing.
Success is neither magical nor mysterious. Success is the natural consequence of consistently applying the basic fundamentals. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another enlightening session of the Pinnacle Pathways podcast, where we explore the skills, insights, and experiences that shape the leaders of tomorrow. At Pinnacle Pathways, we're a youth led initiative dedicated to equipping young individuals with the mindset, knowledge, and tools they need to thrive in the professional world. Through engaging discussions with industry experts, insightful newsletters, and curated upskilling opportunities, we strive to bridge the gap between academic learning and real world corporate excellence. Today, we have an incredibly insightful episode lined up for you. We'll be exploring the fascinating connection between human physiology and professional growth, a topic that doesn't always get the attention it deserves, but plays a crucial role in how we function, lead, and succeed. To help us navigate this, we have a phenomenal guest joining us, Matthew J. Flynn. Matthew is a scientist in human physiology, a public speaker, and a leader in learning and development. His work focuses on understanding how our bodies and minds function at an optimal level and how we can apply that knowledge to maximize our potential, whether in education, leadership, or personal well being. He has spent years bridging the gap between science and professional growth, helping individuals and businesses enhance performance, resilience, and decision making through physiological insights. Today, we'll be discussing how physiological awareness can shape leadership and productivity, how young professionals can use biological insights to boost performance and reduce stress, and the role of L&D in shaping the future of work. Matthew, it's been an honor to have you here. Welcome to the podcast.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for that lovely intro, and it's a pleasure to be here. More than happy to answer any of your questions you may have, and hopefully we can dig a little deeper beneath the surface and see how we can best help people around the world, particularly young people you mentioned there. And yeah, very much looking forward to this discussion.
Thank you so much, sir, for being here. Matthew, your career spans multiple disciplines science, leadership, and public speaking. Can you share your journey with us? What led you to explore the intersection of human physiology and professional development?
Sure. I think for a lot of young people, I can certainly vouch for myself. You get involved in sport early at a young age. For me, it was cricket. For me, it was football. For me, it was rugby and swimming and badminton and table tennis and athletics and anything where I could have a bit of fun as a young man. So that's where my passion for the human body came from. I'll be honest, I wasn't overly academic from a young age, but in my bachelor's degree in human physiology, by the third year, I really got into the research. So that's when I thought, this is for me. This is something I really enjoy. Done a really good dissertation thesis at the end of my bachelor's degree. And I was very fortunate I went into a health advisory role to the Bank of England, the central bank of the United Kingdom. Arguably one of the more famous central banks in the world. There's a lot of global economic finance relies on them. So I got my first insight into corporate wellbeing, working with some senior executives there, all the way up to the governor level. But my passion for the sciences continued to grow. So I knew I needed to do more academia. I had the passion now, less passion for the sport and going out, things like that. So I took it upon myself to do a master's at UCL in medicine, specialising in sports medicine. And at that time, I also wanted to change career and go more down the science path. So I began further studies at the same time to go into a medical clinic in the centre of London. I had to do another master's, so I had a little crossover period, and that was when I learned about resilience quite a lot, because that much academia and changing jobs and changing house and trying to manage relationships is obviously very tough. So I then started working in a private medical clinic. I would take blood from people's arms, venipuncture, cardiology, look at their ECG, respiratory, looking at the lung volume and how it's functioning, and other preventative measures. And I think that really led my career to preventative medicine. What I learned in clinic is invaluable. I've sat opposite well over 1,000 people and helping them diagnose issues that could come in the future. So what preventative medicine is about, it's not treating something at the time of it occurring, it's treating something before it happens.
Right.
So that's when my specialities in stress management, sleep health, resilience really came to the forefront. And then from there, I spent a lengthy amount of time in private banking, so namely Goldman Sachs, done some work with JP Morgan, and in some insurance companies as well. So quite a few household names that I won't mention, but that's where I really dug deeper into the education side of things, the learning and development side of things, and really building out programs for corporate clients of how we can get the best out of our people. But it's not just about the bottom end profit line, it's about the people. So, what you'll find with preventative programs like this, you improve your attrition rate, people are less likely to leave jobs, you improve the happiness on site, you create a more equitable, balanced environment, and people start to thrive. And with that, the profit comes. So it's an investment in your people for the future. And I think the earlier people can do it in life, build non-negotiables, build things that work for them, makes all the difference. So that's a roundabout journey. I still love cricket, I still love football, I still love rugby, but I'm more on the preventative medicine side of things. So my exercise these days is probably more geared towards being a gym goer, staying healthy, getting good sleep, that sort of thing.
That's a fascinating journey, Matthew. Your ability to blend science and leadership really sets the stage for understanding how foundational our bodies are to our success. Let's explore a bit deeper. Was there a defining moment in your career where you saw firsthand how understanding human physiology could significantly impact someone's personal or professional growth?
It makes me smile because I think back to myself. So one of my bear in mind, I've delivered speeches on stage well over 1,500 times now. So this camera's fine, and I've stood in front of thousands of people. But it was actually probably the first major talk I'd done. It was when I was in the medical clinic. A email went around from a director of the clinic and said, "I'm looking for someone to do a talk on some preventative measures. Who wants to?" And I was like, "I'll do it. I'll give it a go." So the company provided a transportation to the south of England to an expo, like an expo. You have it here, like Dubai 2020 Expo, things like that. Similar thing in the UK, but for marathon running. So what the talk was to be about is how not to get injured in the marathon. After the marathon, what you need to do. So I took it. I was like, "I'll do this." When I got there, they're like, "Can you come backstage with us?" I'm like, "Backstage? Okay, that's interesting. We'll mic you up." Mic me up. Okay. Hair and makeup. I was like, "Hair and makeup? How big is this thing that I'm signed up for?" And it was 3,000 people. Quite a lot of people to talk in front of. Literally my first time. I opted not for a lapel mic, a handheld mic. I'd never done that before. I'd never had a lapel mic before. So that's when I really started to learn about performance and human physiology. That morning, I maybe a bit nervous. I had 5 coffees. My heart rate was racing a little bit. My palms were sweaty. My knees were weak. Arms were heavy. Nothing beyond that. But I think some of your audience will get the lyrical reference there. But I certainly felt stress. I learned what stress was internally because I went through it. So now when I speak with others, I always draw my mind back to those physiological symptoms, the sweaty palms, bit of sweat up here, dry throat, feel your heart rate racing a little bit. Yes, you're going to go perform. It might go well, but it could have always been better. And I reflected on that. I got good feedback. The director was happy. The clients were happy, but I wasn't completely happy with myself. And that's when I started to look into it more and go, how many coffees should I have? What water should I be drinking? What's my night's sleep before? What was I doing exercise wise in the build up? Because you can even have waste products in the body from certain exercise activities. So I really delved deeper into the human performance element. And that's what's led me, I guess, going to where I am now. That very moment, I realized, well, if I'm going to make a difference to other people, I've got to do it to myself. And that's when putting things into practice, reading the literature, and making sure that I can impact people better.
Thank you for sharing that powerful moment, Matthew. It really highlights how transformative these insights can really be. Moving on, let's shift our focus to the science behind our everyday performance. For young professionals and students listening to this, why is it important to understand how our bodies function in a professional setting? How does physiology directly influence performance, focus, and decision making?
There's many areas you could look at here, but I think it's important I go to some key ones. If you set the platform now as a young person, your 20s, your 30s, you'll flourish a lot. If you don't set the platform, you'll get towards the end of your 20s starting to feel burnt out. And in your 30s, that's when life starts to happen. Maybe wife, kids, other pressures in life, mortgage, bills, it all grows in life. I don't think you have a moment where it doesn't really grow, because your lifestyle will go with it as well and that sort of thing. So if you can set the health platform up in terms of work, in terms of personal life, it will make all the difference. Now, a question to ask is, who charges their phone overnight? I think pretty much all of us.
Yeah.
Do you charge yourself? That's what your sleep is. So if you was to leave your phone uncharged, you'd wake up in the morning going, I've only got 10%. I've got a Korean to get. I've got to get here. I'm going to run out of battery. Really wanted to listen to that podcast. Now you're not set up for the day. So sleep is one of the key integral parts to get right, particularly while you're young. It's where all your growth and your development happens. Now, how do you set up your sleep properly? Most people think it needs to be really, really complex. Work through different parameters of what you do before bed and work out what's known as sleep hygiene. What I consider sleep hygiene, a lot of the literature says that hour and a half before bed will dictate your sleep cycles in the night. Now, a sleep cycle is around 90 to 110 minutes, a full cycle. Now, I'll go quite in depth with the science here, but I'll bring it back to applying it to modern day life. You'll start with what's known as non-rapid eye movement 1. That's your shallow sleep. So that's when you'll wake up quite easily to noise, sound, light, things like that. That goes down, I'll do this for the viewers, into non-rapid eye movement 2. And that's still shallow sleep, but it's the start of a sleep cycle. Now, some people have heard of REM or REM sleep. That's rapid eye movement. That's your psychological repair. See it as an offshoot from non-rapid eye movement 2. It will come back to 2, then it will go to non-rapid eye movement 3, which is deep sleep. That's your physiological repair.
Right.
And there's one stage to go, that's non-rapid eye movement 4. That's your deepest sleep, your deepest physiological repair. If you're not getting that, you're not growing, and you're not cognitively going to be functioning the next day because blood is going elsewhere to repair muscles. From 4, you go back to 3 and back to 2. That's one sleep cycle. So that's 90 to 110 minutes. Most people, you need 4 sleep cycles a night. You can do the maths. If you're really efficient, 6 hours. If you're efficient, if you do everything right, you'll feel well rested. A lot of research will say 7 to 8 hours. You can get away with 6 if you're perfect.
Correct. Yeah.
None of us are perfect. So you want to do the absolute best. Aim for the 7 to 8, but do everything you can in that sleep hygiene to make sure the cycles are going right. So what can you do? Try not to drink loads and loads of water just before bed. You might need to have a toilet break in the night. That's disrupting your cycles. It's quite an obvious one. A warm drink before bed will stimulate digestion. Digestion is linked to something known as the parasympathetic nervous system. It lowers your blood pressure, it lowers your heart rate, and the blood flow is going away from the big muscles in the body. You're not fight or flighting. You want your heart rate and blood pressure to come down before bed. So those two aspects are given you there. The warm drink brings things down. And what you can do in that hour and a half, have a hot shower or a hot bath, send your body temperature higher. That doesn't sound right. If you come into a cold room, your body temperature will go lower quicker, and our body temperature is meant to come lower when we sleep. So you're almost tricking your body a little bit. So that hour and a half before bed, not too much water just before bed, no caffeine, or try not to. A hot drink that's non-caffeinated, a hot bath or shower, that will send you off into deep sleep quicker. So you get into your cycles quicker, into your cycles better, and you'll get the full range. Now you want to stop the disruption to non-rapid eye movement 4, that deep physiological repair. How you stop that? Caffeine, sugar, stress, and alcohol, and tobacco. So before bed, that hour and a half, maybe a bit longer for some of those that I've just picked up there. The stress, don't pick an argument before bed. If you have a partner and they want to pick an argument, tell them, still with it tomorrow, not before bed. Sugar, don't have a chocolate bar before bed. I know it's tempted to some nights, dates, with a bit of chocolate in Dubai. Don't have it before bed. So you've got stress, sugar, alcohol. Some people will go out drinking now and again, just try not to make it often. And tobacco, if you're going to have a smoke, a shisha, things like that, don't have it an hour and a half before bed. Because all of this is poison to the body. Your body's got to fight it. Your heart rate will raise. Do all of that, you'll get a really efficient night's sleep. That's my best advice, is Get sleep right, build your foundation on rock, and you'll be fine.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's an excellent point about the direct impact of our sleep on our work performance. Now let's tackle one of the biggest challenges many face today. One of the biggest challenges young professionals face is burnout and stress. From a physiological standpoint, what are some practical strategies to improve stress resilience and maintain high energy levels throughout the day?
So stress management, it will come down to lifestyle for the most part. If you're not dealing with your lifestyle properly, you will find it difficult. But one of the main things that's happening in the human body in the modern era is what's known as sympathetic dominance. So I mentioned it earlier, rest and digest system, bringing heart rate and blood pressure down. The opposite is the sympathetic nervous system. That's your fight or flight system, typically the one people have heard of. That increases heart rate, increases blood pressure, and the blood flow typically goes to the big working muscles. Now, thousands of years ago, we're in the camp, we're around the fire, a saber-toothed tiger jumps in. We're going to either fight it or we're going to run. We don't have saber-toothed tigers anymore. We have email pop-ups. We have a video sent by your friend that annoys you. We have cancellation of a meeting. Certainly in the modern world, maybe in university, you've got deadlines that come up. It's all sympathetic dominant. It's all an accelerator. And then factor in some of the modern day stresses that we're having. It's not a saber-toothed tiger, but internally it's the same effect. Now, a saber-toothed tiger is probably not coming into the camp every single day, every single night, back a few thousand years ago. However, we're replicating that more often than not, causing more heart rate increase, more blood pressure increase, and chronic blood flow going away from the digestive system. This is where people are struggling with their food a little bit. Irritable bowel syndromes at an all-time high. And it comes down to stress. So what can you put in place to prevent this? First things first is work out what your red lights are. What actually stresses you out? I know what stresses me out. It's being late for anything, whether it's my fault, someone else's, whatever it may be, it will cause stress, and you can call it anxiety. Deep breathing. It's a lifesaver because when you deep breathe, you slow your heart rate down, so you're counteracting that accelerator. So see the sympathetic as an accelerator, the parasympathetic as a brake. If you accelerate all the time, you're eventually going to crash, burnout. If you brake all the time, you're not going to go anywhere. So you need a balance. What we're doing in the modern world, just a bit too much acceleration. How do we bring it back in? And that's when it's an honest conversation with yourself. What are my braking mechanisms? What can I do? Now, something I do is deep breathing, just 1 minute. Now, I had the capabilities and ability in clinical practice, hook myself up to the ECG machine, have a clinician sat there with me, done 1 minute of deep breathing, and I noticed a big reduction in my heart rate. I know conclusively I've put on the brakes there. This was actually in a really busy day for me and a really, traumatic day for me. In medical clinic, I just sent 2 clients to hospital via ambulance with immediate effect. The first client, they thought being fasted for taking their bloods meant don't take their medication. They really should have been taking their medication, so I sent them to A&E. And the second client had a resting heart rate of 132 beats per minute. While lying down, complete rest, that's not okay. So they went to hospital as well. Turns out they had some heart issues and we got to the bottom of it. My heart rate after those 2 occurrences was about 88, which is way above my resting heart rate. After 1 minute of deep breathing, it came down to 62, more around rest. I know I've reduced my heart rate. I know I've reduced my blood pressure. I know I'm dealing with stress better for the rest of the day. My question to you and to your audience, I had a 10-hour day. When you do the maths, I spent 1/600th of my day to make my day less stressful, better, cleaner, be able to approach things more easy. I put it across to you. What can you do in your day that takes 1/600th of your day to make it less stressful, to make it easier? What are your braking mechanisms? It might be deep breathing. It might be just pausing and have a glass of water. It might be going for a quick walk around the office. It might be getting out in nature. Find something that's easy, manageable, and something you can do before a stressful moment. If you're going into the stressful moment here, great. If you're getting stressed about it and you're going to a stressful moment here, it's going to go even higher. If you can bring it down before, knowing it's going to go higher, you're at your baseline. So it's preventative. That's my best advice. Deep breathing is one thing, but find something you can do that does not take much time, much effort, but it works. Try more things, discuss with your peers, keep each other accountable, and think, is it working? Is it not? Be honest, open, and get it done.
Absolutely. Stress management, I believe, is also key, and your tips really resonate with us as youth and what is essentially what our listeners actually need. Let's continue by discussing focus and productivity. A lot of people struggle with focus and mental clarity, especially in today's fast paced world with constant digital distractions. Are there any specific biological or cognitive hacks you recommend for improving concentration and productivity besides deep breathing?
Yes. So are you familiar with cortisol, the
Mm-hmm.
hormone?
Hormone, stress hormone, yeah.
I'm glad you said that.
Mhm.
So it's commonly known as a stress hormone, but if you flip the framework and see it as an energizing hormone, it will change how you think about cortisol.
Mhm.
So cortisol is a naturally occurring hormone. We all have plenty of cortisol every day, and it peaks and troughs.
Right.
The peak of cortisol is in the morning, not long after you've woken up.
Mhm.
So, looking at productivity, I think we have a very big caffeine addiction in the world these days, whether it's tea, coffee, whatever it may be. And a lot of people are mistiming it in the morning. When you wake up, your cortisol is going like that.
Mhm.
What do you think caffeine does?
Increase it even more.
Increases your heart rate and blood pressure. What does cortisol do?
Something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you first wake up in the morning, you're naturally going like that. If you get your coffee on straight away, you're going like that.
Mm-hmm.
I just told you it has peaks and troughs. So it comes down. That will affect your productivity. My best advice for people that are caffeine drinkers, caffeine consumers, it's seen as a productivity hack. Just give it a moment. Give it an hour and a half after you've woken up. Let your natural cortisol go up. Let it start coming down. Then have a bit of caffeine. And that will change your life. Honestly, that would change your life. Stop having it straight away as you wake up. You don't need it. You need to want it. So only have coffee, caffeine when you want it, and get rid of the framework you need a coffee. You need to have it when you wake up. You want it when you wake up, but wants and needs are different. You need food, you need water, you need exercise. You don't need caffeine because you've got your natural cortisol.
Mm-hmm.
So put it off for a bit. Most people's mid-morning slump is around 11 a.m. You just feel a little bit more lethargic. Have it then. It's a natural booster. What you've also got is the mid-afternoon dip. We all have it. We all crave the chocolate around then. You're feeling a bit more tired, feeling a bit more yawny. That's a good time to have a little bit of caffeine, to go for a walk, to implement strategies such as going for the walk, deep breathing, chatting to a friend, having some water, taking a break. That's a good time to do it. Around that 3 o'clock to 5 p.m. mark, we all have it. What I'm describing is the same for every human being on planet Earth. We all have a blood plasma cortisol. We all have a cortisol circadian rhythm. It's massively affected by your sleep. So drawing it back to sleep, get that right. You'll set up your cortisol through the day right. So with the disruption here, I'm going to give you a story of an investment banker I worked with in America. I won't name the bank, I won't name the person, but I'm going to go through their day. Some of your audience may nod for some of it. You may nod for some of it. I hope not all of it, because it's a very bad example of what not to do.
Right.
So our New York investment banker wakes up early. They press snooze 5 times. They're now running late. They didn't have a chance to grab anything to eat or drink. They're very stressed getting out the door. They've got a very important meeting they need to get into. So they jump on the subway in New York, really cramped, crammed, near everyone. There's now a delay. There's no reason for the delay. Nothing announced. They can't get a signal on their phone. They're now running late for the meeting. They sprint into the office, really stressed out. Too late for the meeting, couldn't join it. Had to send apologies, sending text messages, emails, that sort of thing. Now, they've gone through their blood plasma cortisol already being higher.
Mm-hmm.
They've sent it much higher through their behavior.
Mm-hmm.
Now there's a big morning dip. So they head to Starbucks and they get a big coffee, a chai, mocha, latte, sugar, syrup, sweetener, everything put in, because they haven't had any proper calories yet. Now they have this high sugar, high fat, high caffeine, sending it up again.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have a proper lunch because they had to catch up on the work, the meeting. Now they're doing the notes behind it. That happens with their blood plasma cortisol level. Over lunchtime, they haven't had any food. and now that big dip happens. So their afternoon dip is more severe than others because they've sent it
Up and down.
up and down a lot more. They're irritable, they're hard to be around, not the nicest, quite snappy with people. They go back to Starbucks again, a really big one this time, with a cake, a biscuit, chocolate, that thing with it, because they need a coffee, they need sugar, they need a pick me up. They do all that, they're getting towards the end of their workday, sent the stress cortisol through the roof, and it's starting to come down again. They're on the subway home, they can't be bothered to cook, they get an Uber Eats, but like Kareem, I guess, and they order a Papa John's big pizza with extra cookie dough, with the full sugar Coke, because they just haven't had any food. They gouge on it when they get in, they have all that food, they send that happening again, but then they got to get ready for bed, and they frantically do emails before bed. The cortisol is staying high. Usually, it would have had its last peak around 6 p.m. There's a bit of a body temperature increase as humans. That would be thousands of years ago protecting the camp from predators. We have it naturally built into us. In the modern day, you don't have Papa John's, stress, work, all of that before bed. You're not protecting the camp. Your body's accelerating a lot. Now, this person, this investment banker in America, their blood plasma cortisol level is sitting higher than it should do before bed. So when their head hits the pillow, they are physically exhausted, but mentally wired. Everything's going. Every thought they could think of is coming to their head. So they struggle to get to sleep. They're in bed, head on the pillow, well over an hour. And then the next day, they wake up, they press snooze. They're late for work. They get the chai mocha latte. They're late for things. The stress increases, and the cycle continues. That whole example I've given you is extreme, but there'll be points in that day you'll think about and you go, I remember doing that. I remember that happening to me. So now that I've given you what not to do, now it's about what you should do. Your mid-morning slump, that's a good point to have caffeine for the first time because you've already had your peak. Mid-afternoon dip, do something energizing. Maybe that's a good time to go to the gym, go for a walk, talk to a friend, have a glass of water, whatever it may be. Before bed, you have your natural last peak of cortisol, then it comes down. Make it come down further. Do some stretching, have a hot bath, hot shower, a warm drink to stimulate the digestion. Put on the brakes, and that will make all the difference.
Right. That's actually a very concerning topic that we've talked about, that the stigma behind cortisol, and it's just like when you're in a particular situation, it just goes up and it's not actually good for you, but it actually keeps you going throughout the day. Yeah. Sir, you're also an expert in learning and development. In today's evolving job market, what are the most critical skills that young professionals should be focusing on to future-proof their careers?
I think with the emergence of AI, it's very, very, very difficult to know what the future is going to hold. I think initially when people saw AI come to the forefront, I think service industries were a bit worried, but I think it's now becoming apparent that more tech-based are looking into AI more. So it depends on someone's career path. I think evolving with that skills-wise, there is no substitute for human interaction, community, development there, interaction with your colleagues. You can't replace that with a machine. You never will be able to replace it with a machine. I don't know. Maybe one day in 100 years, there's robots sat here with us having sentient conversations, but we're not there yet. So the best thing I think to do for, particularly with young people, is really focus on the human element, opt for the human element. And if there are courses you can do, if there's learn and development you can do, if you can get in person, I think that's the most beneficial thing you can do, particularly while you're young. It's probably a lot different from when I grew up as a young man, that we didn't have as much tech, but now it's just part of our lives, right? So I think use the tech to your advantage for sure, but don't lose the human element. Learn the soft skills that would naturally come anyway, but develop on them further, learn from leaders, learn from people that have been around for a while, and continue the trend of human element. You want to shake hands, you want to look people in the eye, you want to develop the social skills. It will help with relations going forward. So that's the focus I think young people should have, is not fight back against technology. Keep using technology to your advantage, but don't forget the human element. Keep that going.
Thank you, Matthew. It's clear that continuous learning is at the heart of professional growth. Speaking of growth, let's discuss how resilience plays into leadership. In leadership, there's often a focus on mental resilience, but there's also a biological side to resilience. How can young leaders leverage physiology to enhance their leadership style and ability to manage high pressure situations?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I think there's two approaches you can take. You can take the chronic overall approach of how you're setting up your life, because that'll make a difference. But there's also like fine tuning moments you can do. I mentioned deep breathing, it's critical. I think if you're going into a stressful environment, you want your heart rate to be sat lower. What that will do, it will activate a certain area of the brain called the ventromedial prefrontal cortex. Bit of a mouthful. Just remember it's an executive function of the brain. You're only really going to be activating that with a lower heart rate. You have clarity, you can sit back and take in information. If you're overstimulating, pushing the cortisol higher, you're going more into the fight or flight, that's when you're going to find it difficult for executive functioning. So there's something I'll teach with executives is exactly that. How do we get them into the activation of the right area of the brain? Deep breathing, definitely, but the lifestyle is going to make a big difference. So even things like what type of water you have going into a meeting, you want to have still rather than sparkling. Sparkling you probably want earlier in the day, get any gas out of the body before you go into these meetings. You don't want it during. That's tiny things like that can make the difference. Then there's the chronic general lifestyle of how someone's setting up their life. We've been through sleep a lot. We've been through cortisol a lot. Exercise is another element. Now, every government guideline pretty much across the world agrees 150 minutes of moderate intensity exercise is enough for good health. Now, I would argue you'd want more, but it's a diminishing return with more. 150 minutes seems to be the best rate of return. So I task everyone, can you get half an hour per day, Monday to Friday, or Sunday to Thursday, depending on your work week, where it's just some sort of exercise. It doesn't need to be difficult. And the question to ask yourself, if you're sleeping 8 hours a day, if you're working 8 hours a day, you watch Netflix, you chill with family, you do that sort of stuff, can you limit your sitting and lying down to just 23 and a half hours per day? I think that's a fair question to ask you. Can you limit it to that? And obviously, the other half an hour, you're moving, you're doing stuff. Brisk walking can send your heart rate quite high. That's easy enough to put into your day. 10 minutes, 10 minutes, 10 minutes, 30 minutes at once, maybe 10 minutes mid morning, 10 minutes mid afternoon, 10 minutes after your evening meal. You've got your 30 minutes per day. So that kind of resilience building activity has a great rate of return and it's very simple to put up. It's low equipment, it's low cost, it's very, very easy to put it in place. And I encourage people to do it socially. Some companies I've worked with, they do a 30-minute walk every day. Anyone can join, there's no pressure. But what do you do on those walks? You chat, you socialize, you build those human elements I was talking about, and you're getting your 30 minutes a day, and you come back to work better functioning. And because you've accelerated a bit, now you'll break a little bit, natural rest, you just become a higher functioning individual. I've seen it with some of the most senior people in investment banking. They'll be in the gym at 6 a.m. in the workplace. They'll also go again at 6 in the evening if they're having a particularly long day. They prioritize that first before all of the executive functioning because they know it matches up. So essentially, you've got sleep, exercise, breathing exercises, and other attributes you can put into your day. That will make all the difference, but you have to start slow and slowly build it over time. Build what's known as non-negotiables. So this is a term used in a lot in the financial services in London and around Europe. What are your non-negotiables? What are the things that everyone needs to know about? Everyone's going to know about, and it's going to make you a better person. If no one knows it's non-negotiable, when you say you're going to do it, people might have a problem with it. They might say, no, we've got to do this work. If you establish those non-negotiables early, it fits into everyone's week, everyone's month, the targets, all that sort of thing. And you've got something to talk about. If someone's doing a triathlon in the workplace, you should know that they're doing a triathlon. It's brutal, the training's heavy, they got to be swimming at 5 a.m. before work. Like, if they don't tell anyone, you'll see them and be like, they look tired, they look exhausted. If you tell everyone, how's the training going? How's the swim this morning? It's a bit more friendly and back to that human element. Those sort of behaviors are what gets you to the top level, not keeping everything to yourself. not closing off, not harboring stress. It's about being open and honest with people.
Hmm. That's actually a really valuable perspective. In today's world, generally people are in the grind mindset that all we need to do is work, 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 and all we need to do is get out, churn out stuff, work. Let's say 20 hours work, 22 hours a day, 20 hours days, and 80-hour work weeks. Well, that's actually really good. I appreciate how you link the physical with the mental, but now let's shift our attention to in the role of mindset. Mindset plays a massive role in success, but it's often spoken about from a purely psychological perspective. How does our physiology, hormones, sleep, nutrition affect the mindset and our overall motivation?
Hmm. I think you could look at what's known as the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, or the HPA axis. This is your feedback loop. So you'll start in the hypothalamus, go through the pituitary glands, and then end up in the adrenal cortex, and that's where cortisol is produced. So we've had the example of cortisol, what it is. Now think in the feedback loop. Cortisol you're told to produce more, starting at the brain. So it's how you're perceiving things, mindset, right? So if you have a negative perception of a situation, you are going to stimulate more cortisol through the negative feedback loop.
Mhm.
Now, when does this stop? It's when the feedback loop stops. So if you continually have a negative connotation to something, maybe it's out of your control, you can continually produce cortisol, maybe in a moment where you don't need it. You're seeing the email pop up as a saber-toothed tiger, and really, it's a bunch of words on a screen. Like when you strip it back, it's not the end of the world. Now, what that leads into is how you can build a good mindset there. So, there's an area of research called cognitive behavioral therapy, and that looks at how you frame things. One of them, there's many examples, but I'll give you just a few. Catastrophizing, you're seeing it as the absolute worst thing from a situation. Black and white thinking, it's either this or that, and you lose the grey area. Mind reader, you think you can read what people are saying or what they're thinking. Really, you can't. If humans could do that, then we'd all be a magician on stage. But you can't do that. But the anxiety that comes with overthinking that is going to really affect your mindset long term. But what can you put in place? And it goes back to ancient Greek philosophy, a ancient Stoic known as Epictetus. What Epictetus taught us is something still taught in modern psychology today, in cognitive behavioral therapy today, and even clinical psychiatry today. And what Epictetus taught us is there are things in life you can control, put them here, you draw a line, and then there's all these things you can't control. Controllable factors, uncontrollable factors. Now, what are you not in control of? Other people's thoughts, other people's actions, what they think of you, what they do to you, what they're going to do next. What's a group of people thinking? What if I do this? Mind reading, black and white thinking, mountains and molehills. But what are you in control of? When you look at it objectively, you're in control of your thoughts and your actions.
Mhm.
So when you only concentrate on those two, you realize nothing bad happens. You just get rid of a lot of stress and anxiety. You feel lighter on your shoulders. You feel you can sleep easier at night. Because when you reflect on your day, what did I think about? What did I do? Okay, I'll sleep. You're not worrying about the uncontrollable factors. So once you start doing that, it'll affect your mindset. That will go into the HPA axis. You'll have less negative feedback loops. You'll keep your cortisol going through a natural balance of peak and troughs. You'll have a less severe afternoon dip. You'll be less likely to crave certain foods. You'll be better hydrated. You'll be well rested. You'll feel energized for the gym. You'll sleep better. So it all comes together from just how you apply that mindset to those different areas of life. And always draw it back to the controllable factors and uncontrollable factors. And then you'll realize going into that big meeting, going on that date, meeting that friend you haven't seen in a while, having a difficult conversation with a family member, you're going into it with that mindset of those two things you're in control of. If you apply that through your life will become more successful, better, easier, and you'll actually be nice to be around. You won't have that irritability I mentioned with the investment banker.
Mhm.
You'll just be easier. Suddenly, the human element goes a lot better, and your success will grow and grow and grow over time.
That clearly illustrates the interplay between our physical state and our mental drive. Now, moving on, dispelling some common beliefs. What's one myth about personal development that you think needs to be debunked? Something that people believe helps them, but actually holds them back from real growth.
How controversial should I be?
Interesting.
I've seen a lot of social media influencers talk about a monk mode. Go 6 months, don't talk to anyone, just work, 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 work. Build your business, build your thing. If you go so long without human interaction, social interaction, you'll become awkward. And then all that work you've been doing, if you need to do business with people, you need to go to meetings, suddenly there's something not quite right from the other person looking in. So you want to have a balance. Some people say 80-20, whether it's exercise, whether it's nutrition, whether it's work versus social, but find something that works for you. I would always say after a busy period of work, a work week, do something that you enjoy, that you know is a good breaking system, a non-negotiable. Put that into your weekly life and it will make all the difference. You've also got something to look forward to, something to aim to, and keep that in your life. A lot of people are getting into this mindset of everything's work, like you said, the 20-hour work day, the 80-hour work week. It was an old-fashioned badge of honor. People would do it in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, and then they get to 50 and they're at risk of heart attack. So in the UK, in medicine, but in a lot of other countries, medical practice, we have what's known as a Q risk score. And it's primarily based around some of your blood measurements. Are you a smoker? Are you obese? And a lot of these sort of things. But it does capture about the mental health as well. Now, the person that you pick up at 50 that hasn't had non-negotiables, done the 80-hour work weeks, never sets time aside for themselves, has had poorly managed relationships, their Q risk score is always higher. The person who's managed their lifestyle properly from a young age, had non-negotiables, communicated with people, they will have a lower Q risk score. So, is it better to have a lower cardiovascular risk score past the age of 50, particularly for men?
Mhm.
Absolutely. The same for women. Usually, cardiovascular risk comes at a later date for women. We have different physiology. But same thing, if they set up practices in place from an early age, that'll make all the difference. What this monk mode, work, work, work is doing is forcing you into not creating non negotiables, not creating balance, and leading you down a path of this is what you know, this is the way, and there is no other way. So, balance is the key thing. I think dispelling the myth of not having balance gets you success. You may have missed out on that meeting that could have got a business opportunity because you happened to be socializing at that time. You wouldn't have taken that opportunity, sat at a laptop for 20 hours a day. So definitely think dispelling the myth of balance and not balance is key. Get some balance, get some non-negotiables, speak to people about those non-negotiables, get a community around you, build that community, and you'll make all the difference.
Mhm. Breaking myths is essential for progress, and your insight on balance is really insightful for our listeners as well as today's youth. And your insights are both refreshing and practical. Let's move forward with some actionable advice for our listeners. Let's go super practical. If you had to give our young listeners a daily routine blueprint to maximize cognitive and physical performance, what would that look like?
Yeah, there's a lot of information there. I think I've covered a lot of it. Be mindful of your cortisol circadian rhythm. In clinical psychiatry, the first thing they ask a client, or one of the first things, is when do you wake up? Make waking up consistent. If you wake up at different times, sporadic, your cortisol circadian rhythm is kickstarting at a different time every day. You want to try and make your wake up time the same, no matter the go to bed time. So if you have a later night because you're working, still get up at 6. If you get an early night because you're a bit tired, still get up at 6. Keep that consistent and it sets your hormones up for the day. That's one thing as a practical blueprint. It's proven in clinical psychiatry. In physiology, it's very much the same. You want to wake up at the same time, very similar throughout the year for the most part. Generally, what's seen as a rule of thumb in, I'd say, from Western Europe down to Middle Africa, around 10 p.m. at night, around 6 a.m. in the morning, depending on the sun, when it rises, when it sets. That's generally going to keep you in good stead. Now, obviously, life happens. You're going to have the occasional late night, but it's fine. That's step one. If you're doing that, chances are you're having decent sleep cycles before you've gone through your day. I would say this is particularly aimed at young people. Do not make this your alarm.
Mhm.
And do not set alarms to tell yourself to go to bed. Those two things ruin your circadian rhythm, ruin your sleep cycles. Get a manual alarm, plug it in, and make sure it's away from your bed. Have nothing next to your bed. No phone, no charging points, no alarm clock. It takes around 45 seconds to wake up. So when you go over, you press the alarm, just stand up for a moment, maybe go brush your teeth. You're awake now. There's no snoozing. Cortisol has started, and you're ready for the day. Get sunlight early if you can. Get daylight early. Get some natural oxygen in the body. Start your day that way. Also, the practical tip around caffeine, let things set up naturally, let them come down naturally, then you can have your caffeine. That's another tip. Can you get some light exercise in the morning? Natural energy? Why not? That's a good thing to try and do. If you can walk a little bit longer in the morning, that's going to help you. Now, for your food, diet, things like that, I think there's a stereotype of breakfast is the most important meal of the day. If you're working quite a lot, if you're trying to make it happen, I'd say lunch is the most important meal of the day because that's going just before your mid-afternoon dip. If you have a heavy lunch, it's full of high calories because you didn't have a good breakfast or you didn't set up the start of your day. Your mid-afternoon dump's going to be a lot worse. You'll be less productive. You'll be less cognitively aware. So have a good, healthy, lean lunch ready for the rest of your day. Now, the evening, that's where you piece it off into what can you do. If you exercise regularly, I would opt for weight training, weight bearing exercise in the evening, where you have your last bit of cortisol spike, your body temperature is at its highest. And with that, your muscles are just more ready. If you're doing it in the morning, your grip strength isn't there and you can't really lift weights as much. So cardio morning, weights evening, that's a good start. And then for the evening, that hour and a half sleep hygiene, phones off at some point. I could probably show you on here. If you've got dimmer lights, you can probably see it on the screen.
Mhm.
Just gradually do this, everything around you for the last hour and a half. You should have this kind of brightness. You probably can't see it by the end of the night. You shouldn't be a bright screen you're looking into. That's your brain signaling socialization. Your brain is thinking it's daytime. It's obviously nighttime. You're meant to be going to bed. I'd say if you put all of those things into place, you're going to set yourself up pretty well to be healthy, cognitively functioning at its absolute best. Then you'll just go from step to step. You'll be able to take on more work 'cause you're more efficient and you deal with things better.
Mhm. That routine really sounds like a game changer for anyone looking to optimize their day. In today's work environment, many face unique challenges. With remote work and hybrid environments becoming more common, professionals are spending more time in front of screens and less time moving. How can people counter-interact the negative physiological effects of sedentary work life?
Yeah, it was said by Hippocrates that walking is man's best medicine. Still true today. Walk as much as you can. Are there moments you can take a call that doesn't require video and you can walk while you're taking the call? You'll actually find you activate more cognitive responses in the brain. You'll activate different brain waves as well, and you're getting your light exercise in. With the sedentary lifestyle, I'd say pay attention to how much you sit and lie down. I mentioned it earlier, is can you limit it to 23 and a half hours? I would argue, can you limit it to even less? Let's say you get your 8 hours sleep. Let's say you work for 10 hours a day. You've got 6 hours. That's a lot of time. So resist the temptation of streaming platforms, resist the temptation of watching your favorite YouTuber for 3 hours. Maybe treat that as a reward system and build it into your day that, you know what, I really wanted to watch that program. I finished work, it's 8 p.m. I'm going to go walk for an hour, or I'm going to stretch, I'm going to go to the gym. Just try and get something in every day that gets the body moving, because the sedentary lifestyle is starting to really affect preventative medicine now. If we don't eliminate it soon, it will continue to cause problems for everyone around the world living this living this kind of lifestyle. You've also got what's happening to your muscles as well. We're starting to function differently. We've got excess stress in the tendon in your thumb here. So most people, if they can show you, maybe they can try it. You just grip your thumb like that, and then if you pull your wrist down, if it's really tight in there, you're overusing it, and and you should be stretching it every day. That's one tiny change in the body. The other is known as kyphosis. If you're using your phone, keep good posture, lift your arms up. If you're using your laptop, making sure the top of the screen is eye level as a minimum. Otherwise, your kyphosis. That can also lead to upper X and lower X syndromes in terms of musculoskeletal physiology. With those two syndromes, you will have a lot of cardiovascular problems come as well. What it essentially is neck coming forward, but in the lower back, you get weakness in certain areas. You'll get weak glutes and weak abdominals, and you'll get tight hip flexors, tight lower back. So if you feel you're going down the route of sedentary behavior, you want to do the opposite of the two syndromes. So if you've got weak glutes and weak abs, do some ab workouts, do some glute workouts. If you've got a tight lower back, stretch your lower back. If you've got tight hip flexors, stretch your hip flexors. Do that every day, and that will really help you.
Great tips there. Yeah. Your perspective on the future is both exciting and enlightening. As we think about staying ahead, one final question remains. If you could predict the next big trend in human performance and professional development, what would it be? What should young people start paying attention to now stay ahead?
Ooh, the next trend to come. I've seen a lot of trends. I've seen ice baths. It's like the last 5 years. Every influencer that exists is having an ice bath after their sauna. Sauna, there's a lot of great research. Has been forever. There were saunas in Roman times, Greek times. It's existed for thousands of years even. The ice bath, it's still a trend being worked out. We saw other trends in exercise, such as Zumba classes, people having a little dance and it's exercise. I think biohacking as a term is good. You can get obsessed with it. So what I'd say is with trends, I could see hyper personalized dietary requirements being the next big trend. In that people have their blood work done, they'll pay a lot of money for it, they'll get a detailed analysis on their DNA, and then they'll be prescribed a diet to match what their DNA says. To the point of you're low on copper, have this and this pill to help with the uptake. Go at this time, this time, this time. So I think there's going to be more affordability because to do all that's quite expensive. But I think that with the popularity of this kind of testing, the competition will increase, more companies will come out, and the cost will go down. So your average consumer will start doing this sort of thing. So you'll get hyper personalized diets, hyper personalized supplementation, and you'll see people that take it that seriously, they will feel better. They will sleep better. They will then start exercising more. They will be less sedentary by default. For me, the only thing that will stop that trend is the affordability. It's very expensive at the moment to go to that extent. But if that increases in affordability, generally across developed countries, you're going to see it become a really, really big, thriving business. And yeah, I think that will be the next trend. What can young people do now? Obviously, it's an affordability question. The younger you are, generally, the less capital you're going to have. Is work out your own physiology a little bit. If you have a big bowl of rice with some chicken and it makes you feel groggy, not so good, why don't you take the rice out for a bit? Try sweet potato, try white potato. Experiment with your diet as young people while you're young, when you've got all the energy in the world, because that will help you when you're a bit older. You'll know what foods to eat, what foods not to eat. I know people that cannot eat dairy, but they eat dairy. A friend of mine, we went out for dinner the other day, he had the dessert, breakout of spots the next day, lethargic, couldn't really move around much. You okay? Oh, no, it's because I had the dairy. He knows, but he just took the little risk. Find that sort of stuff out early: nuts, dairy, eggs, some vegetables. Work out what reacts with you. That's your affordability question now, is you can work it out. When the technology comes, when the analysis comes, then sure, look into it, but find out what works for you diet-wise and what doesn't work for you.
That's truly forward thinking advice, Matthew. It gives our listeners plenty to consider as they plan their future strategies. Matthew, this has been such an insightful conversation. To wrap up, if there's one key lesson that you'd want our listeners to walk away with today, what would that be?
As they're young, I would say, obviously, I've mentioned things like work on your sleep, build your non-negotiables, keep the social element, look after your diet and work out what works, what doesn't work. But long-term advice, in terms of being a successful person, you want three people in your life. So you want someone senior to you, like a mentor. You want someone who's a peer, someone you can bounce ideas off, and someone you can teach. Even while you're young, find someone who doesn't have as much knowledge of what you're basing yourself in. Now, always keep these three people in your life, always. And they don't need to be the same three people at the same time. So you're learning from the mentor. You're discussing content, what you're doing with your peer, and then you're teaching the junior. You might be the mentor for. Now, as you go through in life, you might become on the same level as your mentor. It just happens. So suddenly your mentor is now your peer. You need a new mentor. The junior person might be too junior now. You just need that level below. What's happening there is you're learning off your mentor, you're discussing with your peer, and by teaching the junior, you will retain information better. So keep those three people in your life through your whole life, and you'll be a very successful person. Remove any arrogance. The mentor knows better than you. Learn from them. Discuss as much ideas with your peers as you can. So say you implement some strategies today for your resilience, for your stress management. Tell people about it. Tell your peers about it. If something goes well, you realize you've got a really good night's sleep now, and it's been consistent 5 days in a row, tell the junior about it. Why don't you try this? They were talking about maybe not the best sleep. Keep those three people in your life. That's my advice, along with all the other big things that we've spoken about.
Mhm. Thank you for that powerful takeaway. It's been a pleasure diving deep into these topics with you. Matthew, thank you so much for joining us today. Your insights on physiology, leadership, and professional growth have been eye opening, and I know our listeners will find immense value for what you have shared. To all our listeners, I hope this episode gave you new perspectives on how understanding your body and mind can elevate your performance in both academics and the professional world. If you found this episode valuable, be sure to follow Pinnacle Pathways for more expert insights, leadership training, and career development opportunities. Stay connected with us on social media and subscribe to our newsletter for more. Once again, thank you, Matthew, for your time and for sharing your expertise with us.
Thank you so much. Pleasure.
This has been Arya Parekh, and you've been listening to the Pinnacle Pathways podcast. Until next time.